get started now. I'll start off by introducing myself. My name is Danny Jimenez. I am an associate professor in the Department of Psychiatry. I'm a clinical psychologist by training, and I'm beyond thrilled to be the moderator of this panel. I myself am a clinician and a researcher who struggles with the same balance, and I am always interested to hear what my colleagues have to say about this. So I'd like to let me start off by saying that each panelist is going to state or talk about their clinic load and how they manage it, and then after that, then we'll start asking questions. And so if any audience member has a question, feel free to put in the chat, and I will ask it. But I am very excited to introduce today's panelists. First, we have Dr. Teresa Chueng, who joined the Division of Infectious Diseases at the University of Miami in 2022. She is a lead clinician at Florida's first syringe services program, the Idea Exchange, where she provides low-barrier care for individuals with substance use disorders, including opioid use disorder. Dr. Chueng co-directs the Women's Clinic at Idea Exchange, offering integrated services such as the HIV, STI testing, contraception, and addiction treatment in a one-stop shop model tailored for women who use drugs. She also delivers comprehensive HIV care at UHealth Rapid Access Wellness Clinic. She co-directs the addiction medicine curriculum for internal medicine residents, and she sees patients through the combined infectious disease and addiction consult service at Jackson Memorial Hospital. Next, we have Dr. Claudia Martinez, who is a professor of clinical medicine. She's also an interventional cardiologist in the Department of Medicine in the Division of Cardiovascular Division here at UM. She is a physician scientist and the PI of several ongoing NIH studies examining cardiovascular disease in a diverse group of patients at risk. She herself is a previous Claro mentee, as was I. She's also a CFAR and CHARM mentee, which I was not. Dr. Martinez has now established a strong network of collaboration locally in UM and nationally through her leadership in large national clinical studies. She is one of the site PIs of the Miami Hispanic Community Health Study, also known as SOUL, Study of Latinos, and the Max Wise. She is the recipient of the prestigious NIH DP2 Avenir Award, examining the intersection of cannabis, HIV, and cardiovascular risk. In 2023, she received the University of Miami Trailblazer Award by Women in Academic Medicine and the award for the Cardiovascular Researcher of the Year by the Department of Medicine. In addition, as if that wasn't all enough, she is the director of the Miami CHARM Developmental Core and co-chair of the Investigators Developmental Committee for the Max Wise cohort. And then finally, we have Dr. Allan Rodriguez, who is a professor of clinical medicine in the Department of Infectious Diseases in the Department of Medicine here at UM, and serves as the director of the Population Engagement Core of the Miami CFAR and co-director of the Mental Health Disparity Core of CHARM. He is the operational director of the University of Miami Jackson Memorial Medical Center Adult HIV Outpatient Clinic, which serves roughly 3,000 HIV-infected patients. Dr. Rodriguez has extensive clinical and research experience focusing on improving access to care and health outcomes in HIV-infected patients. He is actively involved in HIV/AIDS research and has participated as a PI, co-investigator, and collaborator in numerous government-sponsored trials addressing multiple aspects of HIV/AIDS infection. His main interests include HIV infection in minoritized communities, HIV and drug users, antiretroviral therapies, access and retention to care, and complications of HIV and AIDS. So without further ado, I will leave it up to the panel. And so to start off, we'll go one by one, starting with Teresa. Can you describe what your clinic load is like, and how do you manage it?
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Jimenez, for moderating. And I am blessed and honored to be included in this panel with Dr. Rodriguez and Dr. Martinez, both of whom I've worked clinically and in research. So this is awesome. You asked about my how I balance the load. Well, I guess at my core, I am an infectious disease doctor. I did my training here at in internal medicine and fellowship in infectious disease, and then stayed on as faculty. So I've been faculty for about 2 to 3 years. I've spent the last few years really trying to build a career where I intersect clinical care research and harm reduction. A lot of my work is based at the IDEA Exchange, the Florida's first needle exchange that started in 2016. So that's always a big question, right? Balancing clinical work and research, definitely a challenge. But I think what I've come, the thing I've realized, it's less about how I split my time, and it's more about finding ways for my clinical role and my research role to sort of feed into each other. For example, I am a CHARM recipient, and basically when I started the IDEA Women's Clinic, which was sort of an implementation of having a female-led team on site at the needle exchange, where we can serve women who inject drugs and provide them with trauma-informed care, contraception, STI treatment, HIV prevention. I realized that it was something we were already doing clinically, and it was innovative. So we built a study around it. So that was the basis of my CHARM pilot grant. And it reminded me that sometimes the best research comes straight from the work I'm already doing on the ground. And it's really just like finding I guess, really, I was challenged by my mentors to apply for a CHARM grant. And now I'm able to have more protected time to really work on the grant and make the clinic better. Yeah, so I think a lot of it, and maybe we can get more into this as with further questions. Mentorship was huge for me. Finding structure and boundaries. For example, when I'm not on clinical service, I try and protect my time and carve out certain weeks where I just work on research stuff. I sort of work best in spurts. And so when I'm writing grants or writing up a manuscript, I really have to, I really have to like, my mindset has to be only that. So it sort of comes in waves, but yeah, some weeks will be more clinically heavy and other weeks will be more research heavy. So that's more how I do it. And I think ultimately finding the balance means aligning your work with what is most meaningful to you. If the research work is like what is most meaningful to you, then you can sort of build the research project around that.
All right. And so Claudia, you're up next. What is your clinic load like?
Thank you.
And how do you manage it, or how do you see it?
Thank you. Thank you. So the question that I have, first of all, thank you. Thank you, CHARM, and all of the members for inviting me. It's an honor to be here as a previous CHARM awardee. And I actually put my thought into a very short slide presentation. And I felt that maybe my words were going to have a little bit more impact if they were also not only heard, but also seen. So if that's okay with you, if I can share. Yes. Everyone okay with that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, this is my first slide. Everyone can see it?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So the question that you had is really regarding how do I balance my time, energy, and my mind. So I just wanted to give a little background for all of those that don't know me yet. And I was hoping clinicians would join. I forward this to all my cardiovascular division so that this can serve as a guidance, but I'm so happy that Teresa is here because this also serves as a guide for all of us clinicians, because when I joined in 2009, I joined as an instructor, and I didn't really know what that was. I didn't know that there was this trajectory over time that I was supposed to escalate if I chose academic medicine. I was just so excited to be an interventional cardiologist. However, this is really the reality. Like, we have to advance over time. So how are you going to allow time to be in your favor so that, for example, in this point in 2025, I'm applying for tenure. So, and this has been a consistent trajectory, steady, thanks to two things. Number one, mentor, and number two, research. So as a clinician, I could not have escalated this trajectory without those two things. So pay attention, research goes hand in hand to a clinician to be able to be an academic. So currently, as a physician scientist that I am, I have so many babies, and the babies are projects. So I have clinics every week. I do procedures much less than at the beginning. Way more or less, because I have all of these babies, and these babies mean science, but also mentoring. So each of the science components of each of their leadership roles have both my scientific expertise, but the mentoring, passing on. So that's why I wanted to put this in a slide, so it was more visual instead of, just talking about it, because do you want to hear which one is my discovery? So my discovery is to be able to do this and to escalate into this academic trajectory. I discovered that we have it all within. So what does this mean? The balance that we're all looking for is there, is in our heart. So as a cardiologist, if I can see this, that the heart, so these are the chakras, are the energetic, remember how I say time, energy, and mind. So this is the energy that we all carry within us wherever we go, wherever we are. But the heart is really in the middle. And in the middle means that there's a balance between the physical component and the mental component. So if we can realize this, that we all have this, and that we can, if we are in tune with our physical body and with our mental aspect, then we have found balance, and we didn't need to look for it outside because it's inside. So cardiology has brought me to this realization. When I see patients and I do research, I realize that as long as I am in that balance between reality and the vision, then I am following my purpose. So in summary, what is my recipe that I would like to share with all of you to take home is S cubic. So it's 3S. That means you sit with yourself, you seek collaboration with all of you, which is what we're doing, and you serve. You serve your patients, you serve your colleagues, and you serve the community, which is exactly what we are doing. Danny, Allan, Teresa, myself, we are serving by sharing our story, our message. So those 3S, remember, sit, seek, and serve. And if we do this every day with ourselves and with everyone at work, you will see how we can acquire balance. So how can we apply this into daily, like a daily application of this? So for ourselves, in the morning, we sit with ourselves. So the first thing when I wake up, I open my eyes, the first thing is either breath work or a meditation. It takes 5 minutes, but really I sit with myself and I set the intention of the day, because that's really the direction of the day. And then when I take my kids to school, we are in the car, everyone is setting their intention to go to school. How do you want your day at school to be? One intention every day. Midday means we are at work, like here, we are really offering our time, which is serving. We are doing what we do with love. So as long as we serve with whatever we do, either with patients or in research, if we do it well with presence, then we are serving that S, to serve. And then the final, it's really about connection, company, collaboration. No one can escalate that academic trajectory by themselves. It really needs collaboration. So if this is on the self, but really like to keep the balance, you need to sit with yourself, you need to do things well, but then you also need community, not only at work, but also outside of work, people that inspire you, that lift you up. So with that said, the last part is that as a physician scientist, how do I manage time, energy, and mind? Time is really time management. How do I put in my calendar what I need for myself? My space, my research, my clinical work is really time management. It is one of the key things that I learned in UM through the faculty development program that CHARM connect us with. We all have access to it and really tells you just put it in your calendar so you can see how you're handling your time. Energy is how you really show up. You want to show up without energy, like your glass is empty, or you want to show up full of love for everyone. But to show up full of love and energy, you need to have sit with yourself. You need to choose what to do with yourself so you can share. And then that brings you to the mind. Your mind is you choose what you want to think and how you want to spend your time and your energy. So with that said, my message for all of you is control your time, elevate your energy through the community, pick your collaborators in research that lift you up, not that push you down or drain your energy, and master your mind so you can have that clear vision of what is it that you want in life. And with that, you will attain the fulfillment, which is what we are all looking for, right? No matter if it's at work, if it's at home, it's life. We want to be happy wherever we are. So thank you very much for your time. And I am complete with that.
All right, Claudia, thank you for that. Interesting that you had in the second to last slide when you had the your meditations, I guess the first one in the morning was sadhana, and that's my mother-in-law's name. So Allan, you're up.
Yeah, it's hard to follow that. Claudia.
To
Well,
lift you up.
I don't have slides, and I do have to probably review your slides. I probably should do some of those things, like the chakra and all those things. But anyway, so anyway, first of all, I'm gonna emphasize some of the points that have been made. One of the things I have been probably the longest from the panelists working at UM. I started in 1992 as faculty and 2 years before a fellowship. So. First of all, I'm honored to be invited to the panel and certainly honored to be with my coworkers here. So I really thank CHARM for thinking of me on doing that. There's two things that that were said by the two of the panelists that I really want to emphasize. I mean, one of the things that Dr. Chueng said, I think it's important if you're a clinician and want to do research, to try to do the research involved with what you're doing clinical, involved what your passion is in the clinical work. Obviously, you know, she's with substance use and she does a lot with that, clinical wise and research wise. Personally, I'm an infectious disease doctor, but I pretty much dedicated my life to HIV care. I have done infectious disease consultations and all that, and but really emphasize HIV care. So I pretty much spend my time in clinic. I have clinic here in Jackson twice a week, and I have a clinic in Borinquen, which is outside, which is a contract that I did before, and I really like it because it's a different system, different population, and it's very important for me to see that gives me ideas on doing research, and also give me a more of the idea of what's going on in the real world when you're just in one institution. So when you see both. So I also do inpatient care. Mostly now I'm doing it for the HIV team or the internal medicine team that takes care of HIV patients in the hospital. But one of the things that I want to say about how do you balance clinical, one of the things when Claudia started, she started as an instructor, as she mentioned, and she then became this big researcher, and now it's going to be going to tenure. When I started, there was no it was very clinical. I wanted to start as a clinician. I wanted to take care of HIV patients because that's what I liked when I was doing my fellowship in infectious diseases. I was lucky enough. I started in a time that things were evolving. I was, in 1996, we started the medication. I started seeing the change and the impact in the patients. So you get very involved. It's unavoidable. You get very involved with the disease, and you get involved with the patient's life and what's going on around them. There was no such a thing as a CHARM or a CFAR back then, and I think the resources now are different. So, but eventually, I wanted to do research. So in my case, one of the things that you need to learn as a clinician that you want to do research and you start as a clinician is that, when you start, you're going to have to do extra time to get that research because you're not going to get protected time from the get-go. That's not usually what happens. You have to generate your money and your salary. So one of my first study, the one I was his first PI, was actually looking at access to care in the Haitian population that was coming to clinic. It was a SPINS grant from HRSA, because I saw that problem. I saw this population didn't come to clinic. It was hard to manage. So it was kind of involving, once you develop it. I mean, one of the things, you need to know what you like. You need to know what you know. So if you're a clinician, like Dr. John is, and Dr. Martinez, to try to be the best clinician you can be on your knowledge. I think that's important. And also you need to understand what you don't know and be humble enough to ask for help. I remember the first draft of the grant. It pretty much, it went black and it came back red with all the changes and all the things. And, as a clinician, you think, oh, wow, I'm a doctor. You have to be humble and take it and know that this is all work and understand what it is and work on it. So I think that once you develop it, I think that the other thing is, try to do things. To me, what drives me to do research, and the research I get most involved in, is things that I see that make an impact on either the clinical care or the patient care. For, done grants on getting people on doing patient-centered medical care in Jackson. Jackson is a rough clinic. So with that, we can see the aspect of bringing people, making their life easier to our patients, and then we see the outcomes. So we also do the rapid antiretroviral. We were the first site in Miami that did antiretrovirals the first day, a few days, because that makes a difference how when you treat people with HIV and you come to care and you get them into care immediately and give them the red carpet treatment, how. So that type of research, that's why it's access, retention is what I like. Also, people that are challenged. I've done a lot of hospital-based research, because in the hospital is where you see the worst patients and the most difficult patients. But once you start doing your track record, then you start trying to get some protected time. I think it's important. I think as you need to have time to balance all the things that you heard about. And I think but some of the things that you can get 10%, or you can get yourself 10% on a grant, but you sometimes spend 25% of the time. You can have half a day clinic, but when you have a certain population of patients, it's not the half day. The patients contact you all the time, and you have so there's not going to be a day just for research and a day you try to focus on the research, but that there's going to be some interaction. So I think that's why it's important to be able to incorporate your research into your clinical drivers. So that's just what I try to do. Not all the research I've been involved is related to clinic. You have to be able to collaborate with all the researchers that we have now. I mean, I think we have CHARM and CFAR have really allowed us to work with a lot of people that that I didn't work before, and I think it's great, in mental health research and so on, and to cooperate. We also work with basic researchers. At least we try to get to the patients they need to get. So another thing that I found that is super important, that's something that hasn't been mentioned, is that not only is the researcher, but you need to have a team, and you have to people that you train. I mean, to me, the best people are the people that started, Valeria's from the college, I'm a project manager, people that started with you from the beginning, such as a research assistant, that you train, that they get to know you, and they develop, and you can, let them do some of the things the administrative things that sometimes you don't have time to. So I think it's important to, as you develop your research, it's important to think of the people that you are working with and the people that you bring, and try to make sure they develop into a career and learn more things. So those are the things that I think are most important for me in terms of research, and that's how I try to balance it. But it's always, so I don't see the clinical just a clinical. I think it's a combination of both. I try to do most of the research is clinic based, so it's right there on the same system.
All right. So Allan, you alluded to this point, and it's actually a note that I had written before. But all three of you, it sounds like, started off as clinicians, and then it was in building up your research, and then not just staying. That sounds terrible. Sorry. But you reached the point where you wanted to then go and move beyond, but that sort of move, right, can be very difficult, because there's a lot of need, a lot of patients, and the priority of the institution, whether it's the clinic or the university, is to see is to get the patients in, treat them, and so it can be hard to then get out of that cycle. So my question to each of you, and we'll start with Teresa, like how did you manage that? How did you handle going from a clinician with all the demands that are placed upon you to then moving into the research?
That's a great question. Let's see. So I think first of all, going back to mentorship, I am working with a very dedicated team, friends who are also colleagues and mentors with the Idea Lab. And so my mentors are Dr. Hansel Tooks and Dr. David Sirota. So they were able to support me in my FTE and sort of helping with their research projects. So as I'm doing these heavy clinical weeks, maybe in my admin time, I'm able to contribute some work to their projects. And so as the years pass, I sort of picked up like this is how you run a clinical trial. I've been involved in the T-sharp trial with teleharm reduction and HIV treatment at the needle exchange. I've helped out David Sirota on his high Siri multi-site clinical trial on combined infectious disease and addiction consult teams in the hospital. And so all along the way, I know that I'm being a contributing member, like I'll be the medical clinician on their projects.
I don't know, maybe she walked out
So
to the restroom or something.
Something for her.
I'll be a medical clinician on their projects. So I'll be playing a role in their projects, but not necessarily lead investigator, and I'm learning along the way. I think it's how did that all start? I think I was lucky and trained here and built up that mentorship from when I was in residency and a fellow. And I asked him to mentor me. So I think it goes back to what Dr. Rodriguez was and Dr. Martinez was saying about collaboration. It's important to reach out to people who are doing different things than you. They might be in different fields or different disciplines. But I found that working with different people also enhances my knowledge of how to do research in different ways, which has really contributed to my learning.
And so, Claudia?
Thank you. Thank you everyone for sharing, and thank you, Allan. That was great. It's really like I just need to tell you in public that your patients love you. Every time I see one of your patients, it's really beautiful. So that energy that you continue to have in clinic is amazing. So the question that you're saying is, how was that breakthrough from clinical to research? And the truth is, as Allan mentioned, back then in those times, we didn't have that much support. At the beginning, the instructor, assistant, professor, when I was an associate, then things started to change where CFAR becomes visible, CHARM, CLADO. So this was really an opportunity that I hold on to, and I grab myself to pull myself up to begin to learn how to do research. So thanks to Vicky, who had this team in Claro and in CHARM that were research assistants like Micaela and Jennifer Chavez, they would help us like with things that I didn't even know how to write a grant. So it's really in this point, I think that how to do that breakthrough is way more available to everyone. First, because you have this kind of guidance, people that you can go to and ask, but also the internal mechanisms that are there exactly for that, to bridge that gap between the clinical and the science that seems so far away, but this is what CHARM is for. So please use it. That is my message.
All right. And Allan, can you talk a bit more about your path from clinician? Because you talked about, starting when you started here,
Yeah.
But then moving on to then, you know, going through. But can you elaborate on like sort of the path that you took and how you were able to do that?
Yeah, so I mean, one thing I can say, if you can tell, if I started in 1982, you can tell I started very young because I'm still, but so that means at that moment I just started, I wanted to be a clinician. I didn't think of a research career. One of the things that Claudia mentioned is that now we have the resources. So now it's more available, but which is great, but on the other hand, it's more expected. Now in a university academic setting, it is kind of expected that if you come, you are gonna do some academic work besides clinical work. Personally, I take my hats off for the 100% clinicians that we have here. I think they dedicate their life. I think they're great. And I think sometimes because they're not doing research, they're not as seeing the same, but I think a 100% clinician is important. But in my case, I started as a clinician. But as the years go by, I did have interest. I in the fellowship we were exposed to research. I was able to present an abstract when I was a second year fellow. So that was but I didn't know how to because at that moment, smaller division and stuff. So I remember I went to the first investigators that were working. I said, I want to do research, and they were doing a study on selenium for T cells in HIV, and I got involved in it. So I learned the thing. One of the things that I was able that really helped me was when we our division changed in the history. We got a new division chief. We created a research unit. We started working a lot with antiretrovirals. There's not much going on because we have many antiretrovirals, still some new ones, but at that moment we didn't have. So I learned a lot of the research education then. But when we were doing the industry trials, we didn't get paid for them. We just did it because it was part of research. So I started learning on that. Then I started learning about you know uh, when I was working at the beginning, there was no such a thing as protected time. That wasn't a thing. Then as it became part of the university, it said, well, you get protected time, but you need to get your research. So I wanted to be a PA on a grant, and I remember the first grant. I went to my supervisor then, Dr. Colbert. He said, this RFA came out. Why don't you do it? Give me the grant. I said, I couldn't say no, so I did it. And this is why I told you about the exercise of writing and learning. And I remember working with Dr. Lisa Mesh, and she's the mentor of many of us here, and she really helped me a lot. And we were able to get it. So a few years later is when they started getting protected time. So we started able to get protected time, then you start growing because then you have more time. And then as you get the experience and you get, some publications and so on, you're able to get and get more research. Then things evolve in a way that protected time was a thing. And as you could prove that you have a protected time, you would actually do it. You don't get 100%. I mean, there's no way that and you shouldn't. I do not recommend a clinician to put all their eggs in one basket. I think you should be able to get protected time, but if you get 90% of protected time, don't expect to do just 10% of clinical time. Always do more. And this is my motto, has always been to do more. Do more of what's expected. Having a balance. And again, because some of the intercedes, you can do it. But that's so I just started because we started doing the industry trials. I was very interested, and I started learning about different ways that if you bring it, you would change the clinic. I mean, having navigators in clinic, having people attending to the social needs, that wasn't given by the clinic. We had to get that. So being able to prove that was necessary and bring it to clinics, and that's how. So it was kind of a need for the patient, a need that I saw that was important. I think our patient deserve better. Our clinic is Jackson, has many challenges, always have had, but we try to make it better. And this is how I do it. How I did it then. One of the things is find good mentors that will work with you and spend the time with you. As I mentioned, Dr. Mesh was my first mentor. She really spent a lot of time with me and going over the grants. Now we have a big mentorship. I mean, I think now there's no reason not to be able to do it because we have the pilot program that really helps a lot, and then we have a lot of mentorship, which where the CIFAR and CHARM have just brought it to another level, where you can actually have your grants review, you can actually pretty much get everything you need, statistical support and review. So I think now it's easier, but the difference now is that kind of most of the faculty now, that when they come, they're kind of expected to do research. So, but if you do it and you bring it, the protected time is much more recognized than before. So you're able to do that.
Thanks, Alan. And you brought up a good point, right? With these grants, and for those in the audience that are maybe unfamiliar, a lot of centers such as CHARM, Claro, CFAR, those are the ones here, and then there are other ones here as well. But then there are several across the country as well that they have these grants. There could be micro grants, they could be small grants, but enough to get you at least to protect some of that time to then start generating data, so you're not having to work at 10 a.m. after or 10 p.m. after like a long day of clinic, and you have your kids and all that stuff. So at least it buys you a little bit of time to then move on. You all mentioned and one of the themes that's been coming up has been mentorship. And what do you think? How did you find your mentors? What were qualities in mentorship that you found that you responded to, whether or did not respond to, that sorts of things? And I'll leave it up to whomever wants to answer that question.
I just
can
was
go
the
first.
mentor find you instead of you finding the mentor. I'm sorry.
It could go both ways. You're right. I can talk about how I found Claudia Martinez. I was a resident, I think a third year resident. I had heard so much about her. She was deep in her like investigator role, and I just wanted to get involved because I was interested in HIV and infectious disease, and she had the cardiovascular perspective, as well as she was interested in substance use. So I think finding a mentor who will let you make mistakes. Like, I just remember sitting down with you, Dr. Martinez, and you said, all right, you're going to start and write a specific aims page. And I was like, what is that? I have no idea what that is. I don't even know where to start. But it really became the basis of like, I was able to sort of have a format that really, allowed me to apply for my CHARM grant. And by that time, I had already researched what a specific aims page was for that Claro project. And I think, like the other panelists reiterated, CHARM really just created a great structure for helping researchers learn. I think you're expected to make mistakes and troubleshoot. For example, I didn't know how to make a budget. And CHARM really gives you that opportunity. Like, after you apply and you send your letter of intent, you also get access to researchers who will give you feedback. I know I'm meeting with Jimenez and Dr. Beher Zussman every week, and they said, can CHARM help you with anything this month? And every month I just feel so supported when they ask that. So I think the learning process is you expect it's not linear. Like, you'll run into barriers, and then you'll troubleshoot, and then you'll learn a new thing each time. But I like how structured CHARM is. For their pilot grant, they also have you do a research in progress meeting. And that's when I was sort of midway through my project, and I was able to, again, get feedback from researchers. I met with a statistician, and then I will be doing a community meeting with the community advisory board to get more feedback later on for my project. So I just really feel supported throughout the entire process.
Anybody else want to chime in about mentorship? And I second the magnificence of Claudia Martinez. Just throw that out there.
Thank you. I actually am so grateful to Dr. Neil Schneiderman, who I looked for because I saw a publication of him in the newspaper, and he was doing this psychology and cardiovascular study, which is the Hispanic Soul Study. But when I read the title, and I said, I have to meet this man. So I went, and this was in 2000, whatever, very early on, like very early on, as soon as he got the grant. The point is that I went and he pointed to guidance. So he was my primary mentor, Neil Schneiderman. And then he pointed to Barry Hurwitz, and then I found Maria Alcaide, and Maria Alcaide found me and Deborah Jones, and it just becomes like this collaboration that we have things alike, that we are interested. But the main message that I wanted to see is just keep your eyes open, because there will be something from someone that resonates with you, and then just reach out. And that's really when you knock doors, then it opens doors to many more things. At one point, when I wanted to apply for a K, my division requested, because I was an interventional cardiology and I was going to apply for a K-23, like it didn't make sense as a faculty to like go back to study. It didn't fit. So they created a faculty mentoring committee. And that mentoring committee was really like Mario Stevenson, Neil Schneiderman, and then Alessa Fornone, a lot of people, and to kind of guide me. But I kept going, and then I realized, okay, the K-23 is not for me. I'm getting the message. But when a door closes, then the DP2, which is the Avenida Award, open up. So my message here was during failures and success, just keep an equanimity, meaning that if there's a failure, it will be followed by a success, and vice versa. And when there's success, it will be followed by a failure. So it's just that necessary balance in the universe. And then we all face both. And then just being open that, yes, some mentors will say no, and then that's okay. Another one will appear that is better fit, but also the mentoring committee, and then mentoring for many things. Like I am currently mentoring people that it's absolutely not related to science. It's more like mentoring for life. How do they use their life in academic, but it's more about, life mentoring and then science mentoring. So yes, and yes, that is my feedback. Thank you.
Anything else to add, Allan?
No, I think what Claudia says, I think really want to emphasize that she says, keep your eyes open. I think keep your eyes and ears open. So I think it's very important to really, whatever field you're on or you're interested, to know what people are doing. Try to find out, try to know what people are doing, and then try to get to them. I have a kind of a similar experience that Claudia did, in the sense, how did I start my research? I went to Dr. Colbert with he referred me first to someone, but also the chemistry is important. I knew that chemistry wasn't gonna work. So then I have heard of this other investigator here. I say, I know she's working on connecting people to care in HIV. She's working on this intervention called ARCTAS, but I don't know her. So I went to Dr. Colbert. Dr. Colbert said, well, it's Lisa, I know her. And then you go to the people you know, the people that trusted me, he was my boss. And so he put me in contact with her. We had a meeting, and then this is our mentorship started. So knowing what she was doing and trying to get to that person, and knowing what people are doing here, is if in your area of interest, you try to get to that, because you have to align interests. So I think it's important. I also think, some mentorship, some are gonna work, some are not going to really work. So I think now we have many more choices, and anybody which can probably work, but I'm talking about back then.
Yeah, I agree, Allan. Like there's something that can't be quantified, right? There's that sort of the chemistry that you have, that it works between those two, and then other times it doesn't work just because the chemistry is not there. And then Dan Feaster in the chat put in a really good, he made a really good point about understanding what your interests are. You don't have to have a question. You don't have to have an idea, but to start off understanding like what it is that you really want. Like for instance, like Allan, you were talking about the social needs of your patients, and then connecting, and doing the connection with connecting to care. And so understanding that drove you, right? So understanding what it is that you are passionate about within your own profession and within your own sort of clinic world, that you can then use that and leverage that to go seek who is doing the work that you may want to tag onto. I do want to ask too, it's like in research funding, you have your ups and downs. And so how do you navigate those ups and downs? Because like when you hit that down, then it's your chair is coming to you and saying, hey, you got to see more patients, you got to pick up more patients. And you're like, well, I don't mind doing that, but the problem is that I got these other things that may hit. And so then, seeing patients isn't like opening up a faucet and then, it's like, oh, I'm done. And so you just turn it off. It's like, once it's on, then it's like, oh crap, it's on, type of thing. So how do you manage that, the pressures of seeing patients and then understanding that like maybe like grants are going to come. And so trying to balance like that.
I just want to say you always have to have a buffer. Always have a buffer, because it's gonna change. The grants are gonna change. But I think we have advantages. I mean, I know you mentioned maybe it's a disadvantage, but I think it's an advantage to be a clinician and a researcher as opposed to being 100% researcher, because we can always, when something might go down, you can, try to come up some other ways until the time comes. But I think the division that you work on is very important, and the support that you get to the division, because they're the ones, after all, that can help you balancing those acts. Like sometimes you have to see many, but sometimes you say, well, listen, I cannot have now cleans every day because I'm doing that. Our division, if you infectious disease, always been very, very supportive on that sense, and respectful of that. But in the other hand, things go sour. I mean, right now we're at a time that we don't know what's going to happen. You say, well, at least I have all these other options. And I think that's why it's so important to collaborate with everybody, and always, and I think we don't have to say to the panelists here because they all are, but I think even if you're the greater researcher, always be humble and have good collaborations, because it's a two-way street. You collaborate with them, and sometimes you might need to ask them, listen, can I help with that? Because things are going this way. So, but I think you always have to have a buffer of doing a little more of, for me, doing more of clinical than what is expected on the books, because I know things change, and percentage change and grants finish, and you not necessarily get every grant.
Anything to add, Claudia or Teresa? All right. So Rosanna asks, for the clinicians who are thinking about getting involved in research, what is the why? What's the benefit of getting involved in research?
Thanks, Rosanna, for your question. I think for me, I work with a very specific population, and it allows me to engage clinically and make a change for them in the future. For example, I really enjoy my intersection of infectious disease and addiction medicine, and picking a very a research question that's specific to this population will allow me to engage in clinical trials with them and to make, potentially change outcomes for this population that's largely marginalized and ignored. And so for me, that's my why.
Claudia?
Yes, thank you. So for me, it has been when I receive questions either from patients, for example, women that ask me about hormones, what to do with hormones and perimenopause and inflammation and heart disease and things that are not clear yet. HIV and the heart, like how, like it was really the clinical question of the why, and not having the answer straight available yet, and knowing that I am in a place with the infrastructure that can address that answer. So it's really like taking charge of the current question and the gap, seeing it, and then saying, okay, let's answer this. Many of my pilots came exactly out of a patient, each of them. Like the CHARM pilot was one woman with HIV came, and she herself, her story inspired the grant. So that's my story.
Yeah. I mean, I think to help and to develop what you're doing and to bring it to a different level, I think that's the most thing. You know, practically, you know, in academics, in the university, you know, it's always good to balance research with clinical stuff because it's academic medicine. There's many clinicians outside the university that don't do research are doing very well. But I think it's important, but I think it's, you know, to bring it to the next level. How can we improve our patients' life or understand them better?
And I know, Rosanna, you were asking the panelists, but I would just like to add to like and it's what Claudia, a bit what Claudia was saying, right? This search for knowledge, the search to get answers that you're not just getting in the clinic. There's something more that you want, that you can't put a finger on it. You don't know why, but it's that drive to know, to understand, to geek out on science, basically, right? And that's, I think, what, at least for me, what drove me to academic medicine. So I do like to, I know we have 5 minutes left. If anybody else has more questions, please, by all means, write it in, put it in the chat. I do want to say, I do want to mention and plug the CHARM Developmental Awards are now open. And so, and I actually put in the chat the link that you can follow. So please check them out. They're a really great opportunity for clinicians who want to get started in research to be able to begin that process. So please check it out. And please encourage you to ask any more questions. We do have 4 minutes left.
I think the CFAR pilots are open too, right, Claudia? The CFAR pilots, there was an announcement.
Oh, that's right. And the CFAR pilots are open too.
And don't see CFAR and CHARM as like competition or enemy. See them as something you can collaborate. There's many people being funded by CHARM and CFAR, and some of the resources for CFAR we use for CHARM and vice versa. Right.
And I would like to also plug, I am part of the Georgia Center for Diabetes Translational Research, and they do have pilot awards and that is open. So if any of you are doing research in cardiometabolic or metabolic diseases, diabetes, metabolic syndrome, and on, I'd be more than happy to share that information too. Just reach out to me. So there's not a lack of mechanisms to get the ball rolling, and as you can see, there's not a lack of folks who are willing to help and put in the time to help you achieve your goals. Any last final thoughts from the panel that maybe we didn't get to, we didn't discuss, things that you may have wanted to see or say or hear?
We said it. I think I said everything I needed to. I'm pretty sure. I heard what.
Thank you, Danny, for leading the panel. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, Allan. Thank you, everyone, for paying attention to our stories. And we are here to help.
That's right.